left last week, and Job had these three friends, and they had all gotten together. They met someplace and kind of talked about what they were going to do. And so they came to Job. And when they saw Job, they just couldn't believe how bad he looked. And they just wept for him. And then they sat down, and for 7 days, they sat in silence. And they just mourned for Job. 7 days is how long you would mourn if someone had died. So, as we said last week, or suggested last week, I think that they thought that he was on his deathbed, and I think that Job felt that he was on his deathbed as well. And we see in chapter 3. Now, chapter 3 is one of these chapters that you probably don't want to memorize a lot of verses from this one. You know, it's kind of Job is just, he's listened, or he's sat there for 7 days. He's feeling this incredible pain and this misery that he's going through. I'm sure he can't sleep, and so he's sitting there, and finally he just belts out in chapter 3 how he's feeling. And let's just look at that. May the day of my birth perish, and the night that said, a boy is conceived. You know, we think, what a joyful time when a child is conceived and a child is born. You know, especially a boy, we're all excited about that. But Job said, man, I wish that day had never come. In verse 3:11, he said, why did not I perish at birth and die as I came from the womb? I wish I would have just died when I was born. I wish, he goes on, he says, I wish my mother wouldn't have allowed me to breastfeed. I wish that I never would have been here. I just want to die. Had those days? Had those weeks? Probably. One of the things that I see here, and this is kind of a rabbit trail, but just he's had these 7 days, or longer than 7 days, to think about what's going on. Not talking to anybody, not getting anyone's opinion, except his wife, who freely gives it, and let that go. He just has been inside. He's been running things over in his mind. Is that always a good thing to do? No, not really. When we're inside, we often don't think the best things. You know, it's a great time to pray. You know, in an ideal situation. I wish that I did that more when I was kind of down in the dumps. But more frequently, it seems like when we're inside our head, that's where Satan's at work. And he keeps putting these other thoughts into our head. And eventually, we can become pretty bitter with everything. And we're bitter with God, we're bitter with our family, we're bitter with everything. You know, there's got to be a better way for us to deal with disappointment and deal with other issues than to just let ourselves ruminate about what's going on in our lives. You know, so often we need to be around helpful people. We need to be around positive people. We need to be around encouraging people. The three people that came to visit Job probably don't quite fit that profile. Now these were intelligent people. They were wise men, probably older, and they really had the best of intentions to come and to try to help Job. And we have in the book of Job, we have basically 3 cycles, and this is going to be the first cycle. So we're going to be in several chapters today, and I have most of the verses on the screen. I hope you've read these chapters ahead of time. The first guy, by the name of Eliphaz, speaks. Eliphaz. Again, if you have children on the way and are looking for a name, that would be one that's not used real often. Job chapter 4 now, verses 7 and 8. Now this is Eliphaz speaking. And he says, consider now who, being innocent, has ever perished. Where were the upright ever destroyed? So you see what he's saying, don't you? And again, from his tone here, you can see that he figures Job's about to die. He figures it's about over. And so he says to, so you just said as you were crying out that you were innocent, but when has an innocent person ever suffered? When is an innocent person? You must not be as innocent as you seem. As I have observed those who plow evil and those who sow trouble reap it. Cause and effect. You've done something that has been bad. You have sowed some bad seed, and now it's come up. Now you're going to reap the results of that. Shame on you. Can a mortal be more righteous than God? Can even a strong man be more pure than his maker? Job, you're not as pure and innocent as you think. 5:17. Blessed is now Eliphaz is the nicer of the three guys, and so he's trying to paint this in a way that doesn't make him feel too bad. He says, blessed is the one whom God corrects. So don't despise the discipline of the Almighty. See, Job, you're being disciplined, but you ought to be happy about that. You are blessed because God is looking upon you and giving you all of these maladies. Now, wouldn't that make you feel better? Doesn't that make you feel better when you're going through something? He says, but if I were you, I'd appeal to God. I would lay my cause before him. Now, what does this assume? It assumes he's sinned. Yeah. What else does it assume? That he hasn't prayed. It assumes that he hasn't talked to God about what he's going through and pleaded with God to remove this problem. Well, goes on. For he wounds, but he also binds up. He injures, but his hands also heal. From 6 calamities he will rescue you. In the 7th, no harm will touch you. And again, he's kind of saying, hey, if you get yourself right with God, if you go to God, confess whatever your sins are, I bet he's going to restore you. Wonderful, wonderful. So Job has an opportunity then to respond to Eliphaz. And he did as probably any of us would. He'd say, but wait a minute, I'm innocent. I haven't done anything. Then I would still have this consolation, my joy in unrelenting pain that I had not denied the words of the Holy One. Teach me, and show me what I've done, and I'll be quiet. Show me where I have been wrong. We go through some difficult times. We go to God and where? What have I done? Again, sometimes our theology doesn't match up with true life, our true life experiences. Next friend comes in, and his name is Bildad. And Bildad steps up to the witness box, and he doesn't have as much grace as Eliphaz did. And he says in chapter 8, verse 3, does God pervert justice? Does the Almighty pervert what is right? When your children sinned against God, he gave them over to the penalty of their sin. What's he say? Your kids sinned, God killed them. Your kids sinned, God killed them. Now remember that after the family parties, the next morning, Job would always require the kids to come before God and ask for forgiveness. Job every time would go and make sacrifices as a sin offering, just in case his children had sinned in some way. And so now Bildad is saying, yeah, it was your kids' sin. You thought your kids were pretty good, but they weren't. Verse 3, can papyrus grow tall where there's no marsh? Can reeds thrive without water? While still growing and uncut, they wither more quickly than grass. Such is the destiny of those who forget God. So perishes the hope of the godless. Now he's attacking Job, and once again is saying, hey, where do you think all this evil is coming from? It's coming from you, and it's coming back on you. And that evil is flourishing. You're getting worse and worse and worse. Man, you're in tough shape. If you are pure and upright, even now he will rouse himself on your behalf and restore you to your prosperous state. Your beginnings will seem humble. So prosperous will your future be. So he's saying, if you just, come right with God, become right with God, admit what you've done, I bet God will restore you. Not sure why he believes that necessarily, but he tries to give this assurance that God is going to restore him. And again, Job responds in chapter 9, it's all the same. That is why I say he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. When a scourge brings sudden death, he mocks the despair of the innocent. When the land falls into the hands of the wicked, he blindfolds its judges. If it is not he, then who is it? It's not God that's doing it. Who is it? That you must search out my faults and probe after my sin, though you know that I'm not guilty and that no one can rescue me from your hand. So he's saying, look, God, you know I'm not guilty. And again, the others are hearing this, and so once again he professes his innocence. And so he's pleading with God, who can do anything if you have me if you're holding me in your hand. Well, the theme continues with Zophar. And Zophar is one of the wise men that come and speak to him. You say to God, my beliefs are flawless and I'm pure in your sight. Oh, how I wish that God would speak, that he would open his lips against you and disclose to you the secrets of wisdom. For true wisdom has two sides. Know this, God has even forgotten some of your sins. So you're only still here because God forgot a few of your sins. Otherwise, you'd be toast. You'd be gone. That's good comfort. It's good person to have on your side. 11, 14, and 15. If you put away the sin that is in your hand and allow no evil to dwell in your tent, then free from fault you will lift up your face, you will stand firm and without fear. Again, if you just get rid of your sin, you'll be able to stand up once again and all will be well. Have you been in situations, as we kind of look at how Job is responding to this? Imagine sitting through these three guys telling you that you've messed up someplace in your life. And it's pretty bad. It's so bad that God even forgot some of the things. And you're in pretty bad shape. And it's all because of your sin. Now, that to us seems really, really harsh. Would any of you counsel someone like that? We understand that all evil comes from Satan and from sin, from the original sin. We understand that. But do we believe that every malady that we have, all the pain that we have, comes from our own personal sin? Probably we wouldn't believe that. And yet, to be honest, there are a lot of Christians who do believe that. There's a whole form of counseling that says that. And so, if you have a problem, the first thing they're going to do is to try to get you to confess whatever sins you have, and then, hopefully you're going to be cured of that problem. I have a hard time, with that. But please understand that there are a lot of people that do believe that. Now, Job, he's listened to these three kind of friends, if you will, and he's got to be tired. He's got to be exhausted, and to listen to this, he gets to be a little sarcastic in his response that'll kind of close this particular cycle. And I can understand the sarcasm. I mean, I get like that as well, like daily. But he says in 12:3, but I have a mind as well as you. I'm not inferior to you. I can see, I know what's going on. Don't tell me. Who doesn't know all of these things that you're saying? He said, your maxims are proverbs of ashes, and your defenses are defenses of clay. The things you're saying just are not right. They don't hold any water. I know, don't you think I've thought about that? You, however, smear me with lies. You are worthless physicians. Every one of you. All of you are worthless physicians. Well, you think that maybe they would get upset and leave, but they're not going to leave yet. They're going to come at him with another round of another cycle of suggestions for him, and we'll look at that second cycle next week. So how do we put this together? In your own personal suffering or difficulties that you've gone through, what was some of the advice that you received? Go ahead. What's some of the advice that you've received? We'll be praying for you. Okay, that's good. Good. What else? Give it to the Lord and leave it. Good. God is in control. How did that make you feel at the time? Okay. All right. Good. What else? All things work together for good for those that love the Lord. Yeah, that's a great promise. Again, kind of sometimes is a toughie to feel when you're going through something. God doesn't give you any more than you can handle. All right, chapter and verse. Give me a chapter and verse. Yeah. Wow. Okay, there's only one way, salvation. Don't worry, things will get better. You'll come through this. Get over it. Okay, there we go. When you're going through a difficult time, do you seek out advice? Do you seek the advice of others, or do you just kind of, again, solve it yourself? Yeah. How do you ask? Do you ask for it when someone gives you advice? Do you ask for it? Do you appreciate it? Not always. Okay. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This was the teaching. Yeah, these were wise men. When you look back at the advice that you have been given, was it generally helpful? I mean, did it bring you through some tough times? Not really. Okay, all right. Everybody's shaking. You probably can't see it on video, but everybody's shaking their heads. So most of the advice wasn't real helpful. Huh. Well, what does that tell us? What does that tell us? God's in control, okay? All right? And once again, that can be a difficult thing for us to understand or to grasp at times, because that's, we don't like, we have God in the good category. That God is only going to do good things for us. That's our understanding. And again, when we talk about God as sovereign, that's not exactly the case. I think it tells us that when we are going through the biggest crisis perhaps in our life, the best thing isn't going to be advice. It's not going to be anything that we can say, because chances are most of the things that we're going to say, the person already knows. Honestly, unless you're a doctor and have looked at an X-ray and said, oh, you have, this is broken, this is, unless you're a doctor. But most of the things we say, number one, we're not comfortable being in those positions. We're not comfortable going to the bedside of someone who is gravely ill. And because we're not comfortable, we sometimes don't know what to say. And yet we feel that we need to say something because we're uncomfortable in silence. But in reality, what that person needs is not so much advice, but just your presence. Your presence there means more than anything else that you can do for them. Reaching out and holding their hand for a while, giving them a hug, whatever it might be, just showing that you're there. You're going to be with them through whatever's coming up, whatever you're going to be going through. I don't have words to say, but I want you to know that I'm here and I love you and I will be with you through whatever it is that you're going to be going through. This cycle, this first cycle of Job, that's one of the things that has come out to me, and I'm sure that many of you have other experiences or it touches you in a certain way. But if there's anything, I love the fact that Job's friends were there for 7 days just in quiet. It shows that, again, they were concerned and they were doing the best that they knew how to for their friend. I hope we can all do that for someone that we love, someone that's our friend as well.